We first have to have awareness of our own codependency if we are willing to heal. We need to be able to look at our own weaknesses straight on, and it takes courage to do that, and it isn't going to be fun hearing what I have to say. But our own awareness is what will get us to change. And it is important, like I just said, that we become aware of our own behaviors if we're to make lasting changes. So here we go. The DSM has different versions for the term codependency, and so I used the Wikipedia version, and here's how they describe it. Codependency is a concept that attempts to characterize imbalanced relationships where one person enables another person's addiction or poor mental health, immaturity, irresponsibility, or underachievement. The definitions of codependency, they vary, but they typically include high self-sacrifice. Does that sound familiar here? A focus on others' needs. Does that sound familiar here? Suppression of one's own emotions. Same question. Attempts to control or fix other people's problems. I'm sure we can all relate to this. People who self-identify as codependents exhibit low self-esteem. Codependency it's generally defined as a subclinical, situational, and or episodic behavioral condition similar to that of dependent personality disorder. And Wikipedia also states that a codependent is someone who can't function on their own. And I beg to differ on that one, maybe to a point, but so it's someone who can't function on their own and whose thinking and behavior is instead organized around another person or their process or substance. And I definitely agree with that one. So as codependents, say we're in a relationship and say we both have hobbies that we like to do in our spare time. So you love to do artwork and your partner plays an instrument. As adults, we have responsibilities, and especially us as codependents. So of course, hobbies come after chores are taken care of, right? So it's a work week and each person goes to work. Once the workday is done, both parties come home. You, the codependent, gets dinner on while the partner catches up on the news. Dinner is ready. Everyone eats, where the significant other finishes up, makes coffee, and settles in for the night with their instrument. I mean, why not, right? They deserve it. They worked all day. You get that. And you certainly want them to enjoy their downtime. But meanwhile, you take care of the dishes. You help the children with homework. You bathe them and prepare lunches for the next day. And these are just examples here. It's now 11 o'clock and you have time for a quick shower and off to bed you go. It goes down like that every night during the week. But you shrug it off to, oh, well, I'm just more mature or more responsible than the other. And that kind of makes you feel a little bit better because you're actually acknowledging yourself here, right? But the weekend comes around and you've been planning a little R&R time this weekend. Perhaps do a painting or maybe go shopping for some new art supplies. Your significant other comes into the kitchen to let you know that some friends called and they plan to get together with them, and would you mind taking the kids to soccer practice, which was their task to do. And they look pretty stoked about this. And of course, you want to be a loving person. And you certainly would like for someone to support you if that was your situation. So you take the children to practice. On your way home, you decide to stop at the grocery store to pick up some extra snacks for the guests and stuff for dinner in case they stay. And then you make another stop at the liquor store so that your partner's friends have enough wine or beer or whatever. And to boot, you pay all of this with the money that you were planning on using for your art supplies. So now you come home, you serve up snacks, you serve drinks, you start dinner for 5 extra people. The evening turns into more service and dishes and cleaning, leaving you once again void of any energy nor time for yourself. Does that sound familiar? As codependents, we give so much of ourselves in the name of gaining some form of recognition. See me. See how good I am. Look at all the amazing things that I do. We place a low priority on our own needs while being excessively preoccupied with the needs of others. So let's take a look at some of the characteristics of codependency. Unstable and intense relationships. We get into huge battles or arguments, many times severe with others, due to being overly sensitive about things. It's not just the narcissist that's easily triggered. We get into huge fights over feelings of rejection. We get into fights because of all our resentments. And then we get into huge fights over shutting down because we're too afraid to speak up. Inability to be alone, or for others, always wanting to be alone. Some codependents feel absolutely zero sense of self-worth when alone. They feel that they are worthless without others, while those with an excessive need to be alone feel that way for the same reason, worthlessness. They feel so much shame around who they are that they keep others at a distance so that others will not find out how worthless they are, which they are not. Or they feel safer in their homes. Boredom, feelings of emptiness, especially when faced with self and there's no one around needing them. They feel a sense that they have no purpose in life. Subordinating one's own needs to those of a person with whom one is involved. We all have a friend who's known for ditching all their friends every time a new intimate relationship starts, and perhaps we are that friend. So yes, we lower our own standards and values for others as we previously discussed. Overwhelming desire for acceptance. If you pay attention to this one, it goes deep. You might find yourself constantly being agreeable to whatever others believe, even though it may not be things that you believe. And you may already know that about yourself. That one's too easy to identify. But let's look at one that's a bit more subtle, that the codependent might not even realize that he or she is doing that would be deemed as codependent. It might be that the codependent posts things on social media about how busy they are and how much they do every day, or maybe they post about all of their accomplishments, or maybe some might post about how life sucks and place themselves in victim martyrdom mode. But no matter what coat the codependent decides to wear, it's all in an attempt to be seen, to be acknowledged. It's not like you're not bad people here. You're trying to survive. But the outcome isn't very good for those around us and for ourselves either. And I'm not saying that everyone who posts about any of these things is codependent, because that would make everyone in the world a codependent. The difference is that the codependent will post and experience high anxiety over how many likes or responses they got. The codependent will obsess over it and check their social media page several times a day. It's an overwhelming desire for acceptance, acknowledgement, empathy, and so on. Next, we have perfectionism. Codependents, they want to be noticed and admired by how good they are at something or what they own. It might be how nice their vehicle looks, the status of their job, how clean the house is, or how well decorated. It can be what a wonderful spouse or parent that they are. But whatever that thing is, as long as someone is noticing how wonderful they are in their respective department. Codependents feel empowered by someone else placing them in high regard. The next one is control. Codependents feel powerless, and so in order to survive, they try to manipulate and control others rather than take responsibility for their own lives and their own happiness. We take on others' responsibilities, which makes us feel alive. It makes us feel like we're special, that we're Superman or Superwoman. And then we expect them to create our happiness. That could look like taking on someone else's chores, like cleaning a huge mess of their own doing, for example. Controlling can also look like victimization, laying on the guilt, making sure others feel bad for you. It could also look like constant advice or suggestions that no one really asked for. A lot of times as codependents, we tend to give advice, often unwarranted, with the expectation that the other will heed to our advice, and then we feel offended if they don't. After all those links I sent, all that time I took out of my busy day to help them, and they didn't even open one single link, or they didn't respond. And if they do take the advice under consideration, we're back at the research looking for more links to send because that acknowledgement was a nice boost. And I also want to note that most of the time codependents, although they do control, will give control over to their partners and then resent their partners for it and fight to get it back. Lack of trust. As codependents, we do not trust the world. We do not trust our own selves for any decision making. We don't trust our own selves to accomplish our intended goals. We don't trust that we can succeed. We don't trust that we can survive on our own. We don't trust that anyone will really be there when it really matters at the end of the day. We do everything by ourselves because we believe that no one is going to be around to help us. Our belief is that no one can be depended on, and that's normal because who the heck was when you were growing up? We became the caregivers, be it emotional or physical, or both. Another area of lack of trust that I want to mention is the God wound. The God wound is something that I heard about years ago while I was on a shadow healing retreat. Many codependents struggle with faith that their higher power is not there for them. They believe that God is there for others, but not for them. Somehow they don't deserve God's love, but there's resentment there also. It's a horrible feeling. Dishonesty and denial. As codependents, we can be dishonest to others about how or what we are feeling. We tell our bosses, our family, our friends, our spouses that we're fine when we're not, and secretly hold a grudge when they didn't take care of our unfineness. How dare you take me at my word? But we're in denial every time that we make excuses for someone else's bad behavior. We're in denial about how we really feel inside. We minimize our own needs, our wants, our pain. We deny our own selves, our own rights as deserving human beings. Manipulation. Yes, we manipulate, and I will get into that. Low self-esteem, self-worth, victim mentality. These are all explanatory. And lastly, external referencing. There is a concept in psychology that is called locus of control, which refers to the extent in which we have control over events in our lives. There is external referencing and then internal referencing. An example of that would be a person blames their own lack of motivation for a failed business would have an internal locus, where a person with external locus would blame the failure on the external, such as the government, economy, etc. And an example of that would be a person blames their own lack of motivation for a failed business would have an internal locus, where a person with external locus would blame the failure on the external, such as the government, economy, etc. As codependents, we tend to reference our locus of control to others externally, where we should be referring to the inner. And in some areas, we do inner. For today, we're not talking about that. We believe that we are victims of circumstance, and perhaps as children we were, but we aren't now. We have choices every day that we can make. I mean, we forgot, and I'm here to remind you of that. So let's keep looking at this locus of control theory for a moment with a couple of questions. Say you've gotten into an argument with someone. They said things, you said things. How do you know that you responded appropriately given the situation that you were in? Do you know because you know that you know? Do you feel at your core that what you said was appropriate? Or do you doubt yourself because you've weighed that out regarding the other person's opinion who told you that you did a lousy job? External referencing. Number 2, you want a raise. But how do you know that you deserve one? Do you internally know if you deserve that raise? How do you know whether you've done a good enough job? Do you internally know that you've done the very best that anyone could do and that you're just as smart as the next person? Or do you external reference and base your belief on the nasty way in which your boss treats you? When we don't believe in ourselves, we don't trust our own capabilities, and we look for approval on the outside. Okay, so let's talk about manipulation and how we as codependents manipulate, and we do. Codependents were never taught how to get their needs met. When you have no voice as a child, you learn to not ask for what you want. You can't, because some of you may have been intimidated for expressing your needs, and the only thing you could do when you were being yelled at or threatened was to shut down, because demanding to be heard would have ended up in more intimidation and more punishment. For others, growing up, no one had time for you. Maybe the parents weren't intimidators at all, but maybe you were ignored and it was as though you were invisible. Being ignored or rejected is so detrimental for children. That rejection was way too painful for the child, and later as an adult, where that wound hasn't healed, and the adult now believes that if they do ask for what they want or need, they'll most likely be rejected. And that pain is too much to take. So it's too risky to even try. The belief at the core is that if I didn't matter as a child, why would I matter to anyone now? On the surface, we believe we matter, though, yet deep down we don't. The conscious mind believes they matter, that we matter. Subconscious doesn't. And that conflict, it creates some deep-seated anger, which we'll be addressing later. But staying on point here, when we never got our needs met, we had to find some way to get them met in order to survive. So we learned to manipulate. So let's look at some ways we go about doing that. The silent treatment. One way we manipulate is through our own silent treatment, the very thing that we accuse the narcissist of doing, as much as we don't want to hear that. If there's something that we want, we expect others to be mind readers. Here's an example. A friend calls and says, "What's up?" And you let her or he know that you're overwhelmed with all of this stuff that you have to get done. You're trying to clean the basement and garage and prep for a yard sale, and your friend says something like, "Oh, okay, I'll let you go. I'll call you when you're not so busy," and hangs up. Now your day is completely ruined and you're fuming, because by your complaining, you were hoping that your friend would have offered to come and help, because that's what you would have done. You would have instantly turned into the knight in shining armor and saved the day. The neurotic thing about it, though, is that had they offered, you would have refused the help, because you don't really deserve that, right? There's a shame wound in getting help. But the mere offering of the help would have made you feel better, because you would have felt acknowledged. Somebody would have given you some sort of compassion, which is love, which is caring. As codependents, we tend to let other people's behavior affect us, external referencing, like we talked about. So let's say your significant other walks through the door coming home from work, doesn't say hello, and walks straight to his office and shuts the door, and immediately you're upset. You feel hurt that you weren't acknowledged. You feel rejected. Getting a little flashback here. And so now you're angry, and your thoughts are going 100 miles an hour with thoughts of what an awful person he is, and you think of all things that he's said and done in the past, or she, to disappoint you. 10 minutes go by and they come and join you in the living room, sees that hard look on your face and says, "What's wrong?" "Nothing," you respond, knowing full well that they can see that hard look on your face. So the manipulation that you're using here is you're letting this person know, or you think that you are anyway, that an injustice has taken place without letting them know what it is that they did. They may not have been trying to be rude. They may have had to quickly make a phone call to someone where they only had a limited time. They may have had a terrible day and needed to process the day for a minute. And even if they were just this downright inconsiderate person, you should not let that ruin your day. That's their stuff. Let's look at a less obvious example. You message a friend on social media. They see that you've messaged them and you know they've seen it, but they don't respond. Ouch. All of those feelings of rejection and abandonment and feelings that you aren't good enough and you don't matter come back. And you find yourself checking your phone several times to see if they've responded yet. And the more you see that they haven't responded, the more you spin. By the time they do respond, you ignore it. You wait for hours, maybe days, until your friend finally asks you, "Is everything okay?" In which you reply, "Sorry, I was busy," with the intended meaning is, why would I give you the time of day? You don't know if they were just too busy and they meant to get back to you and they forgot because the day took a life of its own. Overdoing. Another form of manipulation is overdoing for others, and even sometimes overdoing, period, just to make the others feel guilty. Can anybody admit that they've done that? We see ourselves as givers, and although we love to be kind and generous, as the empaths that we often are, but when we're overdoing, we're not necessarily being kind, as we are sometimes being manipulative. When someone tells us that they have a full plate on their hands and we stop everything that we're doing, we ignore our own full plates as though it was of less value. We are being needy, and you may think that you're being helpful, but others can smell the neediness. And this is you getting your needs met by helping this person, because what you're needing is to be seen as somebody, to be loved, to be appreciated, valued, to feel special. Look at how much I am there for you. Look how worthy I am. Look how wonderful I am. And you walk away feeling energized and empowered because you have received what you set out to get. Somebody needed you. It could be a simple statement by the other, like, what would I have done without you? And now you feel tall. I don't want any of you to beat yourself up over this. You're not to blame here. You weren't given permission to express yourself or show that you deserve to have your needs and wants met. You had to figure out a way to survive. It wasn't your fault until now, but now you're grown up and it's time to do something about it. Because codependency can be just as damaging as narcissism. Well, I mean, it is just as damaging because we end up bumping into narcissists and then they ruin our lives because of a choice that we did not make. Codependency and narcissism, they both stem from neurosis. Now, don't be codependent and feel sorry for the narcissist with that knowledge, though, because there still are some differences. Like, one big one is the narcissist really doesn't want the help. And narcissists can be extremely mean-spirited, but regardless, codependency does ruin relationships. And many times, we as codependents, we classify ourselves to others as codependents as though it's an honorable and virtuous thing to be. And we are just these innocent victims who get treated unfairly because we're too nice. But that's just denial. That's just the image that we ourselves want to portray to the world and to our own selves. We too are wearing a mask. When we're all over the place doing for others in an erratic, obsessive manner, we're not helping. We're being servants, slaves, and we do it willingly. We're saying, I'll show you what a hard worker I am. And it's even okay if you don't compensate me. You can step all over me, and I'll work even harder for you. Besides, we've already compensated ourselves quite heavily because we've traded our sense of self for acknowledgement. We are willing to trade our time and energy along with our self-respect in exchange for love. Basically, we've pimped ourselves out. It's a slave mentality because we give and give and give for very little in return. Cookie crumbs. Anger. This is a big topic to address. One of the huge emotions that codependents can all relate to is resentment. And of course, we all know that resentment is deep-seated anger. I'm not saying that anger is a bad thing, because it's not, and it does need to be expressed. You might have a bully in front of you and it could be the only way to put this person in their place if they aren't stopping. Or look at the MAD movement, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. It took anger from mothers whose children were harmed or killed by drunk drivers to start a movement. Rather than going out to take vengeance on the perpetrator, they channeled the energy towards something positive and helpful. And having made the choice to do this, it gave their lives meaning. It gave their lives purpose. It amplified their lives, whereas those who remained in anger, their lives did not expand. The life of that person shrinks. The energy shrinks because every day is lived in sadness and feelings of hopelessness, and that's tragic. When anger is mostly the predominant emotion that arises when an issue ensues, especially in intimate relationships, that anger is usually the lid that keeps the jar shut tight, holding all of the other emotions like sadness, hurt, disappointment, and a number of other emotions that were never processed. These unprocessed emotions are all built up inside, and the person uses up a lot of energy into keeping it sealed in. And often we feel that if we did express that anger, we might look like lunatics. And in a sense, we just might, because we never expressed all of the other emotions that would have needed to be let out of the jar as they came up. And now a bomb has been created. These suppressed emotions, they create resentment. Resentment is a complex mix of emotions. It is a multi-layered soup of feelings of disappointment, hurt, fear, disgust, along with other negative feelings experienced over time. We feel annoyed, we feel guilt, we feel shame for even feeling the way that we do. Sometimes we secretly entertain thoughts of vengeance. Sometimes the resentful feelings can flare up full force in the face of minor injustices, real or imagined. And it could be something as small as a friend who goes to lunch with another without inviting you and you feel excluded. Perhaps the friend needed to talk privately about a personal matter to the other. Or perhaps one friend showed up at the door while the other was on their way out. A last minute thing, so they went to lunch. No one conspired against you. But whatever the reason, the person feeling resentment feels victimized. They will take the situation personally and they won't be able to talk about it because codependents bottle everything inside. As codependents, we feel too much shame for feeling the way that we do. We're embarrassed a lot of the time. And so the anger, it just festers within and just becomes bigger. Let's look at some signs of harbored resentment. There are more, but let's look at a couple. Obsessive thinking. The person is unable to get hurtful thoughts over an incident out of their mind, unable to let it go, and they can't function. Estrangement, feeling as though that you don't belong, that you don't matter to a group of friends or a family or a workplace. You feel as though you are less than in the eyes of others, that you aren't important to anyone. And life seems to just move along smoothly and easily without you. Because often the feeling is, I'm in the way or I bother people. How many of you feel that way? Bitterness. We see this a lot in intimate relationships from so many unresolved arguments. The things that you've tried to address to your partner that really bother you, your partner continues to do. Doesn't matter how many times that you've asked that your boundaries be respected or a need met, it continues to be disregarded, and eventually you lose all belief that addressing the issue will ever change anything, and so you end up feeling bitterness and hatred for that person. You end up seeing nothing but negative toward them. Every time you look at them or think about them, you secretly judge them and feel nothing but disdain for their lack of respect. Another way resentment comes about in relationships is through being disregarded, as though you were invisible to the other or only important when they need something. You're with narcissists, so you've already felt that. Your partner never has the time of day for you, but will jump through hoops for others. You spend your nights alone all the time because they've chosen the internet over you or friends over you. And so you feel alone all the time. Your partner is letting you know by his or her actions that you don't matter and you're worth nothing to them. And of course, it is natural that someone would feel hurt in those situations. We're part of this world and we need love in order to survive. A seed can't grow without water. A garden can't bloom without care. All of these bad feelings leave us emotionally stuck. We put up walls. We feel the pain over and over again through obsessive reliving the experiences like a hamster on a wheel. And because our focus is frozen there, we cannot move forward. I like to use the analogy of the story of Sarah and Lot in the Bible, where God tells Sarah not to look back, and when she did, she turned into a pillar of salt. We are constantly in resistance. We resist the idea of expressing ourselves because of the pain we felt as children, even though we know that we should. And even though we feel bad about it, what we experienced in the past was too painful to relive again. It felt as though someone stopped us from breathing. And in a sense, they did. And so we resist in opening up, because who wants to go through that again, right? So what we end up doing is rejecting our own selves. At least that way we can control the disappointments. Thing is, though, is that if we undervalue and reject ourselves like that, how can we possibly attract people who don't reject us or abuse us when we abuse our own self? We live in a quantum world, likes like. Charles Hannell wrote in The Master Key, I love that book, the attitude of mind necessarily depends upon what we think. Therefore, the secret of all power, all achievement, and all possession depends on our method of thinking. I do want to say, though, again, that you are not to blame for this. As children, we learned that it wasn't safe to express our feelings. Either they would get angry with us for speaking up, or we were so ignored that we felt, what was the use in trying? So we resist now the urge to speak. But the thing is resistance is like walking around in life with a heavy lock on your chest and a choker around your neck. Shutting down like that isn't the only way in which we resist, though. We also resist looking within. We're in denial about how and what we really feel. It's so much easier and doable to look at how others are feeling. Easier to take care of others than take care of our own selves. And like I said before, that doesn't deem a codependent a bad person, and it isn't your fault. However, as an adult, it does become our responsibility to do something about it. And if you choose not to, once you become aware, then at that point it does become our fault. But I'm assuming that if you're indeed here, you are ready to take that responsibility. You're ready to take full responsibility. Unfortunately, before wanting to acknowledge ourselves like that, we cover our eyes and ears in the form of addictions such as overworking, drinking, Netflix, binge watching, or other forms of avoidance. Not a put down here. Your childhood was no doubt a roller coaster of unprocessed emotions. All the times that you were shamed for feeling some way about something. Other times made to feel guilty for even inconsequential things, like maybe you distracted your mother when she was busy doing nothing particularly important. Times where you felt feelings of envy or jealousy when perhaps a sibling was praised for the 100th time, when you so desperately needed some acknowledgement of your existence. That pain is still there. You were too young to understand or put into words what it was that you were feeling, what it was that you needed, which was to feel safe, to feel wanted, to feel that you belonged, to feel that you had permission to move forward in life, that you were enough, that you mattered. I mean, why do you think little children are always saying, "Mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, look at me"? To be seen is a basic need. I want you to really get this. It is a core value. I want you guys to really think on this one, because understanding this could really become the drive to heal your battle with codependency. But anyway, instead of feeling seen when you showed jealousy, for example, you were punished for being bad. So now you have experiences of rejection, experiences of abandonment, of not being enough, that you're bad, feelings of shame and not understanding why, guilt, anger, because you're bad again. If you feel anger, over time, over years, layer upon layers, all of these confusing experiences with no outlet become too much for a child to handle, because there's way too many of them to process. So the little tiny brain, in order to survive the trauma, combines all of these emotions into one lump and sums it up to one emotion: anger or hurt. Friends, there is never a child that grows into a teenager that just chooses as a hobby to drink, do drugs, or steal as their future. Hypersensitivity. When you come from a past of unmet needs, you become hypersensitive to things people say to you. We often take things the wrong way. You might find yourself getting into fights with your partner because of a perceived injustice that may or may not have been meant to harm you. However, these filters, they get in the way, and you end up becoming defensive. Now your partner doesn't see your invisible filters because he or she already has their own, and in turn also responds in defense. And now we have a full-blown fight, resulting in a downward spiral, where things were said and toothpaste words were used, adding on to the list of the other wars until eventually somebody packs it in. Resentment. Another way in which it affects our relationships is, of course, the resentment that we just talked about. Resentment causes us to have these snarky remarks whenever we have an opportunity to sneak them in. Sarcasm, criticism, mean-spirited statements under the guise of teasing are all things that cause relationships to end. People are not stupid. We pick up on those subtleties. We can all feel the energy of a room of angry people. We sense when someone is angry. And it's no different for the partner who walks in a room when their companion or their partner is doing resentment. And without fail, that energy, it gets kicked right back over to you. Communication. So because we're too afraid to ask for what we want, including, honey, can you take the garbage out? And so keeping it bottled up inside, in this we expect that our significant other will read our mind. Now when they don't, you're now getting really fired up and upset because the buildup becomes too much from having held back too many things for too long, that now the volcano erupts, where now what you want to say is too intense in its tone and vile in words, followed by an eruption of accusations, and often the partner had no clue any of this had been going on. And what outcome do you think will come out of this? And then lastly, we have victimhood. When we fall into martyrdom and give the silent treatment, often we're hoping that the other will notice the pain that we're feeling without having to take our own responsibility of expressing our wants and needs. Again, that's manipulation, right? Not your fault, but just be aware that that's what's happening. It isn't fair to the partner in this, because often the partner has no idea that or how something is affecting you. I'm not talking about this in dealing directly with a narcissist here, though. But anyway, they won't understand what they did to deserve this treatment, and you're denying them the information needed for them to process anything. You expect them to get it. In conclusion, we want better relationships. It isn't going to be by taking responsibility for your partner's life, but rather by taking responsibility for yours. Then the two can become one. Not with the narcissist, though. Don't go there. For your new relationship, for your new future. So coming to closure here, the next step that we're going to be discussing will be about how anger affects us when it comes to body and mind. I pulled this out from the NICABM, and what that stands for is the National Institute for the Clinical Application of Behavioral Medicine. The first spark of anger activates the amygdala before you're even aware of it, as you can see here in the drawing. So here we have sources of anger. We have disappointment, we have frustration, judgment, rejection, and fear. 2, the amygdala activates the hypothalamus. 3, the hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland by discharging corticotropin, releasing hormone. Number 4, the pituitary activates the adrenal glands by releasing adrenocorticotropic hormone. I'm having a hard time saying that word, so I apologize. Number 4, the adrenal glands secrete stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. And here we are. We have all kinds of people complaining that a lot of weight loss programs don't work. Most diets will fail if the cortisol levels are too high. Elevated cortisol causes neurons to accept too much calcium through the membrane. A calcium overload can make cells fire too frequently and die, and that prevents you from using your best judgment. It keeps you from making good decisions, and it prevents you from planning your future. At the end of this module, I'm going to have a meditation for you to listen to in order to bring these levels down. Elevated cortisol also kills neurons in the hippocampus. In the latter, we were talking about the neurons in the prefrontal cortex. But anyway, in the hippocampus, it disrupts the creation of new neurons, in turn causing a weakening of short-term memory and or forming new memories properly, which is why you might not remember what you want to say in an argument. Let's look at serotonin. Too much cortisol will decrease serotonin, which we all know is the happy hormone. Are you feeling happy? When you don't have enough serotonin, it can make you feel anger and pain more easily, as well as increase aggressive behavior and lead to depression. One little trick that I've learned that has greatly helped me with my serotonin levels is to face the sun, be it indoors or outdoors. You do this every day for like 2 to 3 minutes. So you close your eyes facing the sun. Of course, you do want sun. And imagine the sun rays entering your third eye and moving into your pineal gland. And what this does is it activates the pineal gland and it creates serotonin. More serotonin, a calmer state, a happier mood, better sleep, and improved digestion. All in all, anger creates stress. Let's take a look at how all of this stress affects your body. And after that, I'll be able to let you guys go. The cardiovascular system, the heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, arterial tension increased, blood glucose level up, blood fatty acid level up, and can lead to diabetes. When these symptoms become chronic, blood vessels become clogged and damaged, which can lead to stroke and heart attack. Immune system, your thyroid function lowers. The number of natural killer cells, the type 1 blood cells, get reduced. The number of virus-infected cells goes up. Incidence of cancer goes up. Digestive system, blood flow reduced. Metabolism goes down. Dry mouth increases. Headaches increase. Migraines increase. Eyes, intraocular pressure, fluid pressure in the eyes goes up. Eyesight goes down. And lastly, bone density goes down. So there you have it, folks. Anger affects every part of your life, be it relationships with spouses, family, work, your ability to think properly, make the right decisions, succeed in your life. It affects everything. And so we want to make it a priority to do something about it, which is what we'll be healing as a big part of this codependency class in the following weeks. So for this week, I would like for you to list all the ways in which codependence has affected your life, health-wise, mentally, career, whatever you can find. And don't be shy, because you are the only one who is going to look at the list. Next, I want you to list all the ways in which you behave in your codependency, like how you go about manipulating others. Write down anything else that you might see as a character flaw that codependency has you behaving as. And as promised, here is the MP4 for you to listen to. I want you to listen to this at least once a day when you know that you will not be disturbed, and of course not when driving or operating equipment. We're going to be doing a very short but very effective meditation. This meditation is a technique from the HeartMath Institute that when done for merely 3 minutes, its effects continue for 6 hours. And this technique brings your heart and your brain into coherence. In other words, complete balance, which brings you to a gamma state. And what happens when you're in that state is your intuition increases. Your immune system gets boosted. You have increased focus. Your memory is sharpened. And anti-aging effects occur because the heart signals to the brain which proper chemicals to send out to the body. So here we go. Nice, slow breath in through the nose. And exhaling out through the mouth. Relax. Breathing and relax. Relax. And now I want you to shift your awareness from your mind into your heart. I want you to become aware of your heart center. That's the area where you have your breastbone. And I want you to gently touch your heart center. And it can be a light touch of your fingertips. It can be the palm of your hand. Or it can be your hands in a prayer position with your fingers towards the sky and the back of your thumbs gently touching, whatever feels comfortable for you. But keep that awareness on your heart center. And as you breathe, I want you to feel that breath as though it were coming in from your center and out through that center, as though you were breathing from your heart. Next, we slow down the breath to 5 or 6 seconds in and 5 or 6 seconds out. In through the nose, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just keep breathing like that, inhaling in and exhaling out. And inhaling 3, 4, 5, and exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, and relax and feel that heart center. And I want you to take note that as you breathe, when a person naturally breathes like that, that's when that person is feeling safe. And when you begin to feel safe within, you draw more of that safetiness onto you in your outer world. And just feel what it feels like to feel safe. You are safe. Breathing from the heart, I am safe. Feel that feeling of safetiness in your heart. Excellent. And now let's increase that feeling of safety from safety to appreciation. I want you to feel the feeling in your heart of appreciation. I want you to feel your heart swell up with the feeling of who and what you appreciate in your life. And expand the feeling of appreciation as much as you can. Excellent. And now I want you to expand from appreciation to gratitude. I want you to start feeling in your heart center. I want you to feel gratitude and breathe it in. Who is it that you're grateful for? What are the things that you're grateful for? Just feel that gratitude and let your heart expand. Let it pulse. Feel the expansion growing bigger and bigger. You can even say thank you in your heart. And now, calm breathing. I want you to take that feeling of gratitude and gently move it to compassion and to care. And just open your heart and feel what compassion for self feels like. We often know what it is to feel what compassion feels like for others, but we don't feel it for self often. So right now I want you to take that moment now to feel compassion in your heart and care for self. You're here doing the work, aren't you? You deserve it too. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen, right? You deserve to take care of self because you are enough and you matter. And you deserve to be loved. So take this moment to love self and have compassion for all the things that you do. And now, gently move back to a feeling of gratitude again, a nice, calm gratitude. Grateful for this moment, for this short meditation. As you prepare to come out of this meditation, I want you to take a moment to feel gratitude. Gratitude for the here and now. Gratitude for the feeling of feeling safe, feeling compassion, feeling love, breathing it all in. And when you're ready, just take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Eyes wide open, feeling calm, feeling good, feeling relaxed, ready to start your day.